facilities like Berbera port, which can serve for Ethiopia, 85 million people, landlocked, with a very ambitious development and economic plan, actively looking for a port, we can provide, and therefore we can act and be a bridge for economic development for the whole region. All sorts of reasons why Somaliland should be recognized are there. Don't forget about the stability we provide in the region, the democratic values and systems we have, which is all what the United States bridges and other Western countries also would like to see happening in many developing countries. The official reason that's often provided by, or an argument, if you like, provided by the West, not necessarily only the United States of America, is that the issue of recognition is actually for the African Union or African states, if you like, to take on. We can understand that Somaliland is part of Africa, and the African Union should have an opinion on our situation. But we see the hypocrisy there. We have seen many examples where Western countries, including USA, have taken an active role in embracing new nation states. South Sudan is one of those countries. In fact, the African Union opposed actively to the independence of South Sudan. It is other countries that have promoted the idea of South Sudan, which we supported it. It is a self-determination of the people of Southern Sudan that have been respected, and we think that our self-determination should also be respected by America, by other peace-loving and democracy-loving countries. We think that there is a lot of things that America and other countries can do, and we are talking. We're still talking to the government of America and other governments, and trying to convince our argument. Thank you.
Can I do a follow-up?
Sure. Yeah.
Ms. Smith, I would just probably a follow-up though.
Please.
What is, from your perspective, the downside, or is there a downside should the United States or another Western country, in other words, not an African country, be the first or one of the first to recognize Somaliland? In the end, does it make any difference? Don't you just need someone to recognize you?
Honestly, I can't think of any downside for the United States government's decision to recognize Somaliland. I think that will be an encouraging, that will send a clear message out there to the international community, to Somalia, to everyone, that the United States cares about good behavior, cares about stability and peace, cares about democracy, cares about the people who are committed to the war against terror, which is a common international problem. And I think that other countries will follow suit. I think South Sudan has been supported by big countries, and there wasn't any downside I can think of. A lot of African states came to the inauguration of South Sudan's independence on the 7th of July. My president and myself have had the privilege of witnessing that historic moment in South Sudan, and I have to say a lot of visitors have embraced us, and they welcomed us, and they were wishing us that they wish us that we are going to be the next country. Our flag has been raised, which we're very happy with that, for the first time in a country that's not Somaliland. That shows the attitude of African states, and some other countries have moved on. I can't think of any downside. I think it will be only positive results of that decision.
Minister Omar, Steve Evans from the Marine Corps University Press. Just a quick question on, well, first a comment. I don't think the United States or the UK should wait for the AU. I mean, we've been polite. They've had their chance. If they didn't want to avail themselves of it, then we should just go ahead and recognize you. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the recent deal that Somaliland effected with China in regard to the improving the port of Berbera?
Yes, certainly. This specific initiative was as a result of an approach we have received from a Chinese investor. That Chinese investor has struck a deal with the Ethiopian government about producing natural gas, and they start thinking about, because Ethiopia is a landlocked country, they wanted to have a port where those resources can be exported internationally. They also needed a factory which can transform a natural gas into a liquid gas, which will be an end product for export. And Berbera is the closest port to Ethiopia. At the moment, Ethiopian government and Ethiopian business community make use of Djibouti port, which I think they will continue, because it's a massive country. They have a very ambitious development plan. Ethiopia wants to become a middle income in 10 years' time. That's their ambition. I think they would need more ports, Djibouti, Somaliland, and other ports. And then the Chinese have approached us, and they want us to see whether we can accommodate for that purpose. And we started talking to them. So there is no deal done yet. We started. This is an initial talks about how we can make a deal. So we went to China, and we have started talking about them. Obviously, we will be thinking about the financial terms, the legal terms, the technical aspects. We are taking all those advice at the moment, but we are interested in embracing international investments, whether it comes from China or from the US or from Arab states. It doesn't matter. We want to have an international investors interested in our country. That will help us to provide jobs. That will help us to take our profile higher than it is now, and we think it will encourage other investors and other people to come to Somaliland. So yes, we are excited about that process, and we hope that will produce some good results.
Let me just comment on something. This is virtually the same response the U.S. government gave when Minister Samater came here in 1992 to talk to Hank Cohen in the State Department about the issue of recognition. Part of the reason that I wrote that article was because I didn't think our arguments were getting an audience. It's unfortunate that the State Department hasn't moved appreciably beyond a point of 20 years ago, virtually, on this position, and I'm sad that we haven't had more success in getting the State Department to be bolder on the recognition issue. I think there is an important difference between South Sudan and Sudan, because it was the comprehensive peace agreement process. And one of the arguments that works against you is there's nothing there on the other side to negotiate with. That if two willing and able partners were able to negotiate a dissolution of their union, then nobody would have a problem with that. The problem is there's nothing to negotiate with on the other side. Item 3 that I worry about, in fact, on my way over here, I had a word with David Shin. David is a professor at George Washington, and as you know, was ambassador to Ethiopia. And his comment was, I'm meeting you, and sorry that he couldn't be here, but he echoed the recent press release about, well, if al-Shabaab withdraws from Somalia, then that vacuum will be filled again with warlords and clan structures that they manipulate to create the darkness that has governed Somalia for a long time. And there's a fear among the learned in this community or within Washington that fear a repeat, if you would, of the horrors of the early 90s. And then lastly, as a comment, and I know that you've had this discussion, whenever I talk to the oil companies that have declared force majeure on their properties in Somaliland, they worry, notwithstanding the border issue with Puntland, which, as you know, covers some of those properties, is that even if we were to go back in there, we would never be able to get insurance coverage on our operations. And secondly, what would prevent another government from trying to somehow renegotiate these rights? And then, thirdly, if we brought in a partner, what would the partner say? Because they might eventually be subject to a suit by the original holder. I mean, there's lots of complications here on the oil, which I get frustrated by, as I'm sure you do. So those are just some observations which you don't have to respond to.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. And just the point, if I can pick up the point of David Sheen about the warlords coming, it has happened last week. The Al-Shabaab has vacated many space within Mogadishu. That space has been, or a couple of spaces have been taken already by warlords. Warlords are not in favor of peace and stability and security, and they don't want the TFG to succeed. So the TFG, it is very clear that they are so weak that they can't even capitalize on the recent achievements on the ground. So that's absolutely, David Sheen's assessment, it has already happened. I mean, we're seeing. And your comments on the CBA, yeah, that's right. One of the key objectives for the comprehensive peace agreement in Sudan was to make unity attractive first in 6 years. And if that's not, if it doesn't become attractive, then it provided an opportunity for the people in South Sudan to have a referendum on whether they wanted to go alone. We think that Somaliland has been in a unity with Somalia from 1960 till 1990, which is 30 years. So we have given a unity, we have tried to make unity attractive. We sacrificed it a lot. It didn't become attractive. It became destructive. And then what we are saying now is, and we have a referendum in 2001 in Somaliland in which people were asking, do we really want to go alone, or do we still want to be? And overwhelmingly, the people in Somaliland said, no, we want to go alone, we want to be independent. So yes, I think Somaliland has had our own way of CBA, and there is no a country like North Sudan that we can talk to and negotiate about our exit, because of the squabbles, because of the divisions, because of the different groups, Al-Shabaab, the TFG, the warlords are now coming, so many groups. You cannot pick and choose a group. That's what I want just as a comment on that.
Mr. Minister, if I can venture both a comment and then a follow with a question. I think one of the, I've having long been an advocate, as many in this room know, for Somaliland. I'm now convinced that part of the problem that Somaliland has is you're too good. You don't present problems. You keep your 500 miles of coast free of piracy, so we don't need to patrol there to keep pirates away. You're stable enough that we ship prisoners from Guantanamo to you because we wouldn't dare ship them to Mogadishu, and you, the former government, agreed to take these people when we couldn't find anywhere else to take them. You don't attack your neighbors. In fact, you do everything right, so you can be ignored. It's the squeaky wheel. It reminds you that I often think maybe Somaliland's salvation might be that movie, The Mouse That Roared. Maybe if you would declare war on us, and then we'll defeat you in 5 minutes, and then proceed to rebuild. But more seriously, I think one of the problems, actually, that Somaliland does face in this town and many other capitals is that people presume that since you've been so good for 20 years now, things will always be the same, so we can take you for granted. We'll worry about the people in Mogadishu, since we're going to give them another year. The audits reveal that they stole 96% of their bilateral aid the last 2 years, so we're going to give them another year to improve upon that record, so to improve with greater efficiency. Could you comment on that? If we continue, the international community continues to ignore Somaliland, in the worst case scenario, which I certainly hope doesn't come to pass, that we continue to ignore, will things always remain the same? My suspicion is they won't, and that we're making a major mistake in the international community by simply taking you for granted for 20 years and thinking it will always be the same.
Absolutely, Peter. I agree with you. In fact, one of the key ideas I'm going to share, or have been sharing with Westerners here in the US, is you cannot take Somaliland's stability for granted. We have been working on stability and security and democracy for over 20 years. That's because we are fully committed into promoting our position. But we were not going to be able to sustain those achievements